Welcome, everyone. My name is Orest Chornomaz, and I am the founder and director of the Toronto Bandura Festival. Today, we are joined by Teryn Kytasty-Kuzma, who will be our featured performer at our inaugural Bandura on Bloor concert series show, taking place on Friday, March the 21st in Toronto at the Heliconian Hall. Ukrainian-American singer and bandurist Teryn Kytasty-Kuzma is a versatile performer and musician of classical, contemporary, musical theater, and folk repertoire. She is a recent graduate of Bard College Conservatory of Music, where she received her master's in vocal arts. Her upcoming engagements include being a featured soprano and bandurist at the 2025 Ukrainian Contemporary Music Festival in New York City, as well as her recently appointed position as artistic director of the Kobzarska Sich bandura and vocal programs. In addition to her emerging singing career, Teryn is devoted to maintaining the art of the bandura and Ukrainian music. Recently, she was awarded the role of Concertmaster for the Women's Bandura Ensemble of North America and has been working alongside Zoya Shepko to revive the New York School of Bandura. Welcome, Tranya, and thank you for doing this interview. I am very grateful to have you here. I and the Toronto Bandura community are super excited about your performance on Friday. I was hoping at first you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your musical background, and maybe give us a bit of a backstory and how you first got into music and singing, and who were some of your most influential early teachers who both inspired you and perhaps cultivated in you a love for music and bandura.
Absolutely. I'm so grateful, Otis, that I get this opportunity to be the first featured artist in the Bandura on Bloor Festival. I hope that I get to return many times. It's a very exciting opportunity, and I hope that the festival keeps going for many years. It's a very exciting thing, and I know that there's a really thriving Bandura community in Toronto, and I'm excited to be a part of this festival. So I am coming to you from my tiny apartment in New York City. But I started my singing career quite young. I grew up in Connecticut in a very musical and a very Ukrainian family. So both my parents are second generation? Yes, second generation or first generation. I don't know which generation they are, but they're my grandparents, all four of them emigrated from Ukraine after World War II to the United States. And they, all four of them, were very musical. And so I had the privilege of growing up with two extremely musical parents on both sides. And especially my mother's side of the family carried this extremely special tradition of the bandura. So I grew up pretty much from the moment I could carry or hold a bandura, I was playing. And with a little bit of reluctance at first, at 7 years old, I think that was when I first started playing. And that's when I first attended the junior bandura workshop at Kobzarska Sich. And it was with a bit of reluctance for sure. And it wasn't my favorite thing to be holding this heavy thing and, have blisters on my fingers and, be practicing scales. And I just wanted to either be playing all the complicated stuff that the older kids were playing or just not be playing at all. But as I grew older, I think I started gaining I started getting more kind of conscious in my musical skills, and also I started realizing kind of how much was passed on to me in terms of my bandura heritage. And I've always been asked kind of, what is it like being related to the Kytasty family, which is my mom's side of the family. And, when I was a kid, I didn't really know what that meant or what that signified. But growing older and, becoming a teenager, that started really coming into I started coming into my own as a musician. And that really started to progress into my musicality as well. And I started realizing like, oh, that's kind of a lot of pressure in that I really do come from this long line of musicians, and especially bandura musicians. So, and that's a very lucky thing. So I think I stepped away from the bandura for a little bit when I was a young teenager because I started to really love singing. And I part of it was really because of my older sister Alina, who will be in another of these concerts at the Bandura on Bloor festivals. But I started to really follow her lead with singing lessons and piano lessons, and I started to really wonder, oh, I kind of want to do that too. And I started singing lessons, and through that knowledge, I really started developing that skill and also continued on with Bandura as kind of a summer fun thing to come to go visit my friends at Bandura camps. And then, especially when I turned 14, 15, 16, when I went to high school, that was when things started to really come together, and my musicianship skills really kind of skyrocketed, and I not skyrocketed. They were okay at best, but
A
I was
little
really
bit. They skyrocketed a little bit.
a little bit. They improved, and I was really able to grasp these skills and started really realizing how I could use my singing with my bandura skills, and how cool this instrument was, and what it could do. And that was really only the beginning, and I'm still really in just the beginning phases of my bandura playing and bandura creating.
Mm.
Honestly, I feel like I've dug in a lot to into my singing, as as someone with a master's in vocal arts. I feel like I've dug in a lot into that part of me, and I'm still very also much discovering that part of my musicianship. But my bandura playing is something that I very much am still discovering every day, every week, every concert. I'm finding something new that I want to keep exploring. So, and that's something that I'm very grateful to, have the opportunity to do every concert that I do. So, yeah, I'm very excited to share that with the audience members at Bandura on Bloor.
So actually, before focusing sort of more on the Bandura side, I actually wanted to ask you a little bit about your emerging opera career. As I mentioned earlier, you graduated in 2023 with a master's degree in vocal arts from Bard College Conservatory. Congratulations, by the way. Um, how challenging was this period in your life? And are there any teachers or individuals that are you particularly thankful to for helping you sort of evolve as a musician? And just in general, like what kind of sort of memories you have from this experience, and what kind of recommendations would you give for people or emerging opera singers thinking about pursuing a graduate degree in vocal arts? Perhaps maybe you can go in a little bit about what sort of skills uh, these type of programs cultivate in young musicians.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That program was, I think everybody who's gone through the Bard Vocal Arts program, I think everybody can agree that it's a life-changing program, that it's something that is truly career defining, and it's something that changes you as a musician, as a person. Um, I will thank every single one of those professors that I had. Um, it is something so amazing walking into an audition room, firstly, even auditioning for the program, and the entire panel is women. Like, that is something, as a woman, that is so, I mean, that is so empowering to see, just in myself. And then, that's just one part of it, but also just the way that all these professors, Kayo Iwama, Erica Switzer, Stephanie Blythe, who's an amazing, amazing performer, mezzo soprano, and my incredible teacher, Lucy Fitzgibbon, how they all challenge you, but also encourage you to look deeper, to always look deeper, feel deeper, and um, always be more curious about things. I mean, it just it completely changed my entire perception as a human being. It's yeah, it was life changing. It as in a 2 year program, I think it completely gave me the tools that I need nowadays to have. I look at a piece of music that if I'm hired to do anything, I can look at a piece of music and I can confidently say that I can dissect it. I can translate it. Um, I can research the history of it. I can really delve into the emotions of it because of the training that they gave me. They gave me all those tools, and it's hard work. They really push you, but they also encourage you. And through my bandura playing as well, they encourage you to use all the aspects of your musicianship. So they really encouraged me to keep going with my bandura career in addition to this. They really said you should absolutely keep, like, I brought my bandura into my voice lessons a few times, which really actually also added to my pedagogy as a bandura teacher and as a bandura performer as well, because what I learned as a singer and as a performer of bandura as well at Bard, they all helped me with that as well. So they helped me in all facets of my performing career as well, because they really encouraged me and everyone to do all kinds of performing, not just classical and opera. Um, and in fact, I would say that the majority of the time was, like, yes, there was a portion of the 2 years that was spent on opera, but I would say that a majority of it was spent on analyzing art song, poetry, other contemporary works, and otherwise how to be a musician today, um, how to how to do that. So yeah, for singers today, I would say that if you are feeling like you are feeling hmm, like if you genuinely are loving the work of being a singer, but don't know if you, first of all, I didn't know if I had what it took to be a singer. This program will show you.
Good here. Yeah.
This program will, yeah, this program will show you, first of all. Um, and the training that you will get is something that you really will not find at any other institution. At any other institution, yes, you will get maybe probably more role training, more operatic roles in general. But at Bard, the training that you get in terms of artistry and musicianship, you will not find at any other institution. So I cannot recommend it enough for young singers and for older singers as well. It used to be a program for actually um, and even so, like, I was actually one of the older students there at 25, um 23, 24, 25, 26.
Do you
So
enjoy doing the extra work and the sort of intangibles that like you were taught, like now that you've sort of graduated and started performing, I'm assuming you've taken kind of these skills and applied them to your recent shows and things like that. Do you enjoy doing that, or do you
yeah.
kind of just like to just sing? Because there's two ways
Oh
kind of
yeah.
how, yeah.
I not only enjoy it, but I think it's to be an effective performer and to be a performer that people really connect to. I think it's necessary. I think there's no other way to do it. And I think that in order for to be a performer that people can say, I really connected with that person, with that performer. I think that that kind of work, um, I think that that kind of work is the only way
Mhm.
that that you can translate that music to an audience, to any kind of audience. And the only way that you can actually purposefully respect the work of the composer as well. Um, so I also, because now also we worked a lot with composers as well at Bard, and I also now know and appreciate how much work goes into composing these pieces. I also, out of respect for them, I will always do that work because I'm like, this took them so much time and so much effort. And sure, I might not have the time to go into as much depth and research to go into every single piece, but I will do at least the minimum of as much research as I can to do I will do the bare minimum of research in every performance as I can, to do a respectful um, interpretation of each piece that I do.
It,
Yeah.
it's it seems like for a bandura player nowadays, especially if you want to perform for a largely sort of a non-Ukrainian crowd, this kind of work goes without saying. You have to do it because otherwise the people who listen to the music won't get any sort of context of
Hmm.
where this, just not just about the instrument itself and then the actual composer, the actual music that you're playing, is because especially if it's in Ukrainian, right? You don't really, you might not understand the words, so you have to do all this work. I mean, I know a lot of solo performers like Yulian and Kitaste, your uncle, and Victor. I think like maybe 20% of their performances, whenever, even if they're performing for Ukrainian audiences, goes into talking about the actual songs and explaining the context and what they're going to be singing about and the history behind it.
Hmm.
It seems like this sort of skills really work well with kind of a bandura um, musical career that you also,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I think kind of naturally, without even realizing it, I think my uncle influenced me a lot because, people in grad school said, you really do talk when you perform, like you like to explain things, and I'm like, I wonder where that is, but I think it is because of my uncle and because of
Yeah, yeah.
what I noticed in his performances. And it wasn't a bad thing, it was just something that they were like, like you really do explain things like when you before you perform. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I think that's why.
What do you find sort of or what do you like most about the bandura that sort of has kept you playing for so long? And what do you think are this instrument's sort of best features? Um, and perhaps maybe there's a certain type of or genre of music that you like playing on bandura most, and perhaps maybe there's some repertoire that you want to maybe include or learn in the future. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
So I grew up playing just a diatonic,
Hmm.
uh, regular student Chernihiv, and I had a few instruments that came through my mom's collection that I really loved playing. And honestly, my mom, and this comes in through my teaching as well, my mom really grew up with her teaching, emphasizing the bases, emphasizing really digging into the bases and never leaving the bases behind. And, because a lot of students, they always tend to just play the right hand and then just tend to leave the bases behind. In all my playing, I love I love a low bass sound. Like that's something that really I love a low timbre of the bass that's really rich and it really like grounds me um as a player, and that's something that I really appreciate in a good bandura. And so eventually actually, I switched from a this beautiful diatonic instrument that was, I don't know if you ever saw it, but it was a diatonic instrument. I had never seen one before like this. It had like a hexagon shape in the middle, and it had a little Taras Shevchenko face, like kind of here, like towards the bases, and then it had like a rounded, very thin back to it. It was very
Yeah, I
strange, and it was
remember
a
seeing.
diatonic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very strange. And then I
Like a
switched to
50s Cherniv or something diatonic.
something like
Yeah.
that, but it was shaped kind of like a Lviivka,
Oh,
but it was
okay.
diatonic, and it was very light.
Yeah.
Very strange. Anyways, so I switched from that one because I felt like it was time to switch over. I wanted to play more complex repertoire as a teenager. I started wanting to play more classical, more jazzy, more just more of that repertoire. And also Żaba, the women's Bandura ensemble, was being formed, and I wanted to start looking into the repertoire that they were picking. So then I switched over to a Lviivka with chromatic basses. And I love that instrument. I played it for about 10 years. And what I loved about that instrument was just the the lightness of, well, I love the lightness of the instrument. Again, I love light instruments.
We
um,
all do. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's true.
Heavy.
And the top of the instrument, especially just how gentle and delicate the very top notes are. They weren't like harsh in any way, just um how delicate they sounded, really how twinkly and sparkly they sounded. Because some top notes in banduras can sound quite like harsh or like stringent. But especially on this instrument, now my little sister has it. But they just sound really, really beautiful. But the low basses can sound a bit tinny. And so I got very lucky over the summer. A donor or a family friend of ours has had this master built bandura built by this guy Lavranenko in '93, and so he asked my father if I would be willing to take it, and I had. And this bandura that I'm playing now really has the best of both worlds. It is a lighter master built, which again I love. Um, Very twinkly top, beautiful low bass, so it has kind of the best of both worlds. And it yeah, I just love this instrument so much. It has, and that's one thing about bandura, that it's tough. And I've had a lot of conversations with my uncle with my uncle Julian about Poltavkas and about Kharkiv style, which I would love to start playing because I have not, to this day, really have not had the chance to pick it up. But the bandura was kind of built by sighted people, right? So the Kharkiv bandura and the Poltavka bandura, those were built for blind musicians, right? But once these sighted musicians took it up, they started adding more strings and building heavier versions, and then it became kind of like a lap piano, and that's when it started getting really heavy. And it's hard. It's hard for kids, especially, and for I'm a pretty small. I have a pretty small figure. It's hard for me to carry these heavy instruments and to carry them all day, and it can really affect your posture. And as someone who's now, I've taken 2 years of Alexander technique, which is a somatic body work. That was part of my training at Bard. I carry that into my lessons and into my playing very seriously now. um, but really heavy banduras, I think, um, can really affect that if you don't really work very hard on seeing if you can really balance the structure of your body and how to balance and work on having your whole body involved in the playing. So it's not just your fingers involved in the playing, but it's your whole forearm, your whole back, your whole trapezius. My voice teacher in one lesson at Bard, she said this thing that Lucy Fitzgibbon, I will thank you for the rest of my life for this thing. She said, "Can you feel like your fingers are an extension of your spine?" And that one phrase like opened up my entire rib section, my entire back, and like all of a sudden my whole arm was involved in playing the strings. And like I also during COVID, I don't know if you knew, but I had de Quervain's tendonitis and I had to get surgery for it in my right thumb.
Oh, wow.
So ever since then, I've been very careful about how I play. Um, so I think it's important that we choose a good instrument and not only a good instrument that fits our bodies well, but if we do have a heavier instrument that we're very careful and we work very hard on balancing our body's structure and working very hard, because I feel like this is something that, you know, especially in a summer camp setting, which is where I did a lot of my bandura learning as a kid and a teenager, where we kind of sweep that to the side in an effort to learn as much music as we can in 2 weeks. But that's kind of swept to the side. But that's something that I really am such a stickler on, is not necessarily good posture, right? We're like, we sit straight up, that's also not attainable, but finding a neutral posture where we can actually use as much of our body's um, muscles as possible to play. And that really helps.
Is that
Um,
is that something that you now that you've been teaching at and started the New York School of Bandura, is that something that you particularly accentuate in your new students nowadays? Because I find
Absolutely.
posture is
Absolutely.
probably one of the hardest things to teach to younger children, because there's just so much kind of
Hmm.
unnoticed pain that goes into starting how to play a bandura, and
Yeah.
balancing, like teaching a child how to play its first notes and at the same time keep their hand up properly, because you have to institute these sort of I guess practices really early on, because if you don't, then
Hmm.
once they get older and kind of habituate them, it becomes even harder to remove them.
Yeah.
And
But
then at
I
the
do
same time,
notice.
yeah, but then what I wanted to ask is, how do you kind of balance that aspect of starting Bandura teaching and keeping it like fun? Because I find that's very difficult to do, because if the kids kind of, they go, it's not an easy instrument to learn, obviously.
Mhm.
Maybe one of the hardest ones to start off. And how do you balance kind of like the keeping it fun for them and having them play and kind of create music while at the same time um, have this core in place
Mhm.
from the
Mhm.
start? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your experience so far teaching.
Yeah, so it's my teaching pedagogy has really evolved over the past few years, and also I've done a lot of caretaking and a lot of my own kind of teaching, either privately, or I've also done quite a bit of teaching in public schools over the past couple of years, on and off, either through teaching residencies or um, through just also through COVID. I did some substitute teaching as well. And so I've been learning a lot through that as well. And the best thing is consistency. And you have to keep it fun, consistency. So, I am not, I also, through my artistry and through my musicianship, I am and through my leadership skills as well, through my conducting. Here's the thing that I always make sure to keep true to myself, and through even through stressful times, I always make sure to keep this very much a core part of myself. Yes, I take the music seriously. I do not take myself seriously. Like, I do not take the whole like, I try to make sure that the kids have an enjoyable, and the adults too that I teach. I teach a lot of adults. I try to make sure that they're having a good time, that they are having an enjoyable experience, that they have a positive association. So with kids especially, I'm not afraid to use funny voices. I'm not afraid to, say when I see them like slouching over, and I'm like, just like that. I'm not afraid to be a little goofy, a little funny. That's always been a part of my personality, and that's something that I always love to carry into my leadership style too. It's when I have to be serious, when I have to crack down, of course I'm not afraid to do that. But most of the time, I think that in order for people to remember things better, and for people to also um, start internalizing things, you just have to be patient with yourself and with the student, and consistency, but also keep it light and fun, but consistent. So just gentle reminders, gentle adjusting, and just consistency is key, because then it'll start just naturally happening and they'll start doing it. And kids especially, they're sponges. So the more you do it, the more that they'll just start adjusting completely, and it really does start becoming muscle memory. For adults, sometimes for adults, some people are like, oh, I don't like teaching adults as much because for them it's harder for them to internalize things. I don't necessarily think so. I think that actually, um, for me, it's also easier sometimes to teach adults because then I can explain concepts in a more intricate way to them, and then they also, you know, um, are more willing to practice at home than say kids are. But yes, so that's I think that I think is something that I very much put into my teaching pedagogy, is that I take the music seriously and I take the art seriously, but um, I do not take the process seriously. I like to really keep things light if I can. Oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry. So just so we're on a topic of teaching, I mentioned obviously that about the school that you started. So you recently started the New York School of Bandura with fellow bandurist Zoya Shepko. I just wanted to just briefly, maybe you could tell us a little bit about how that experience has been going, maybe from sort of more an organizational structure point of view. What are what are you guys, what kind of goals do you guys have for the school? Maybe long and short term, and how's it generally been? Was it been difficult setting up the school, or and how rewarding, I guess, the process has been? Because this is coming from someone who's tried starting a school maybe 5 or 10 years ago in a city with
Yeah.
another three schools of Bandura.
Yeah, absolutely. So this has been kind of a really, really lovely passion project to do with Zoya. And I think, it's wonderful for us to do because also there is such a wonderful legacy um, that we're learning more about because of and the incredible work that Pan Mikola Chorny did. And really, like, we're discovering so much about, like, the archives he kept, um, the work that he did, and just so that's been such an amazing part of just also learning more about the school back in the 80s, 90s, and 70s as well. Um, that's been such a rewarding part of this as well. And so through that, I mean, the key has also been consistency with that. So yeah, it's been a very, very rewarding process. It's um, with New York City, it is definitely not easy to find space for lessons. So our short-term goals, we have done workshops, successful workshops in the past. We have our next one on April 5th. And those have gone very, very well. Um, and I think short-term goals are to get more more students involved, especially more young students involved. We're getting quite a lot of adults interest, which is very exciting. Um, I think the short-term goals are to get more young students involved and to hopefully get more students to hopefully buy their own banduras, because just it's hard for me to keep 5 banduras in my room at a time. And same thing for Zoya. And then long-term goals, we do hope that someday we'll be able to find our own space to have like an office and a lesson space to where we'll be able to keep some banduras, and where we'll be able to function as a lesson space, a workshop space where we'll be able to keep some banduras, where we'll be able to host workshops, private lessons, group lessons. So I think that's our long-term goal, but our short-term goal is just to keep growing as an organization. But it's been very rewarding so far, and I think just more our outreach to the community and reconnecting with also the old New York School folks has been really, really cool. And we hope that it keeps going and keeps growing as it already has. So yeah.
Um, uh, so I know recently you've also just seen this announcement. You got I guess, offered an opportunity to be a co-artistic director with another artistic director, Oleg Sazanski, at
Mhm.
the 2025 Kobzarska Sich Bandura and Volkal program's summer camp. Now, I believe this is your first time as artistic director, right? I'm not entirely sure. You might have been before.
Kobzarska, yes, I have been
Kobzarska Sich,
director.
yeah.
Yes, at the Bobrivka workshop in Connecticut, I've directed several times. Not as like we don't really have like a full-time artistic director. That's like we share the responsibilities there, but I've directed there several times.
So
Um,
someone who's kind of, I mean, went to this camp for many years. I mean, I still remember you when you were just a little,
yeah.
grade like seven. I was
Yeah.
teaching there. How do you feel just over this opportunity? Like what when you got this opportunity offered to you? How do you like? What's your kind of vibe going into this? Are you sort of excited? Are you sort of more like, oh, this is like my first time. I'm super nervous about coming up with, my own program. And how in general do you like, what's your kind of feeling going into this? And how do you intend to kind of I guess maybe you haven't thought about this yet, but how do you kind of see yourself, I guess, organizing the musical program this year at Kobzarska Sich?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I am wicked excited. I it's very exciting. This is something that honestly, as a kid, I I was a very shy kid growing up. I'm sure you remember. Like I was actually pretty quiet. Like, when I was like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like I was pretty nerdy. I had like these glasses. I like pretty much kept to myself. Like I was really but I remember like thinking to myself, I'm like, that'd be pretty cool if one day like I could, do some directing or something like that, or like lead some groups. Like I remember thinking that at that age. And then, but me being like, I don't even know where I would start. And then now, as I grew older and started breaking out of my shell and started learning more and started conducting more, um, yeah, it's a huge task, and I'm very, very, I'm just so excited. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I want to, I saw the amazing work that especially Nick Smedeka did last year at Kobzarska Sich, and I just saw, the amazing open environment that he created amongst the campers and the staff last year, and just the warm energy he had. And I want to make sure to continue the amazing work that he did with creating this warm atmosphere and really imparting such positive experiences to the kids, to the campers. And I want to continue that work and keep building on that. And working with Olef Kozanski, who also was one of my first teachers and who made me my first set of nails that up until now, like I have been using for the past 15 years. Um, that is super cool. I think I am very excited to work with him. I think he'll have a lot of advice for me. I'm not a formally trained conductor. I have taken 2 semesters of conducting in college, and then have done, as I said, I did direct at Bandura camps, and then just on the side, I I did some choir conducting for like the local Ukrainian choir
I
at my
think you're gonna be okay.
I I really, I'm not formally trained, but so I think he'll have a lot of good advice to give me, and I'm very grateful that he'll be there to um provide some guidance for me. And also, um I think I have a lot of ideas, and I think, to work alongside him will be a really cool experience. So I'm just overall very excited. I think I have a lot of ideas, and we already have some ideas on the program, and I think we want to explore different genres of bandura. Um, and we're both very excited about that. We already have some ideas about arrangements, and Yeah, so I'm excited about that.
Also, we're all very excited for this new year. I'm actually maybe I'll apply to be a teacher there this year, but I'll see. Um, but I moving on because we're going up a bit up to an hour now, so I wanted to go through a couple of more questions here. But you're also I mean, I guess you're a founding member of Women's Bandura Ensemble of North America. You mentioned it earlier. You guys have a couple of concerts coming up actually right after your show. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about, I mean, just some people who don't really know much about the Women's Bandura Ensemble in Toronto. I mean, you guys have performed here before, but I think it's been a couple of years now. You're also the concertmaster of the group, I believe, somewhat recently
Yes.
you've been appointed. Yeah, how is that? How are you guys have been doing? What kind of repertoire have you been practicing? And maybe you can tell us a little bit about the upcoming shows that are happening in a week.
Yeah, so the Women's Bandura Ensemble has been growing. We've been getting, we've been having a lot of interest in new, younger members, and we have been getting an influx of new members also with the new wave of refugees as well from Ukraine, which we have welcomed with open arms, and we are very happy that we can provide a safe space for them to come and play bandura with us, and we are very happy to have them in our group as well. We have in the Women's Bandura Ensemble have been really focusing on not only focusing on increasing our musicianship and improving our musicianship with our repertoire that we know and we love, but also we have been trying to really increase our amount of new repertoire in expanding our genres of repertoire and with our program that we are presenting next week in Pittsburgh, Cleveland, or in 2 weeks, sorry. So not this week, but next weekend. In Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Detroit. The title of the program is Songs from Near and Far. So we will be doing a collection of songs not only from Ukraine, but we will also be doing an arrangement of a medley by one of Toronto's very own bandura players, Christina Lewicki, which is a medley of Summertime by George Gershwin and Oj Chodit Son, which famously George Gershwin was actually inspired by Oj Chodit Son, which the Koshitz Choir was touring in the United States, and George Gershwin heard this tune and
Oh,
then through that melody was inspired to write that aria into his opera Porgy and Bess. So she took this inspiration and she put this into a beautiful melody, and so it's jazzy, it's folk inspired as well, and so I love having that as an addition to our into our repertoire. We also have an arrangement by Ivan Dusanovsky, one of Bandura Beyond Borders players, who wrote us an amazing arrangement of Różanice's piece Ochina Krečmate, which is very folk. We're very folk inspired, very powerful song about mothers going off to battle for their sons. And then we also have a Crimean piece that he arranged, Ey Güzel Kerem, which is really gorgeous and really evokes the cliffs of Crimea. And we really hope that we will, we really hope that the audiences will enjoy not only our favorites of our repertoire that we've decided to keep in our sets, but also our new repertoire that we are very excited to share with our audiences as well. So, and we hope to come back to Toronto soon, hopefully. But yes, that's a very good point. We haven't been back there in a long time, so
yeah,
hopefully we'll.
it would be great if you guys performed here. Can't wait. So just moving, I guess, a little bit more towards the show now that it's going to be happening in I guess less than a week now. Um, you have quite an extensive program. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about kind of songs. Maybe is there anything in particular in your program that you're particularly excited maybe to perform?
Yes, I still
And
need to
maybe
send you that. I will send you that today. I'm so sorry. I
No, I mean I really don't need the songs
Forget
names.
it.
Yeah. I'm just saying maybe if you if there's something in particular about you're quite excited about
Yes,
I mean
yes,
I haven't heard you play a long set. I guess never really 'cause it's maybe before COVID, so I'm just kind of curious as to what to expect. I'm sure it'd be amazing, but I'm just in terms of repertoire, maybe you can give us a bit of like a little
yes,
preview.
absolutely. So I'll be playing quite a few instrumental pieces. So I'll be playing a piece of Ivan's that I really love playing. It's called Something. I've recorded it. I really love playing that piece. I'll be playing Marina Krut's piece. I'll be also playing a piece that I love playing. It's a very upbeat piece, an arrangement of Anastasia Wojciuk's Janšek that I love performing for new audiences. It's very upbeat, very fun. And then what else am I performing? I have to think about this. And then I am also doing quite a few original arrangements as well. So there's a folk piece that I really love performing that's very powerful. It uses kind of a mix of um, head voice and then also chest voice. Oj ty Żajworonku, which is about a skylark going to the top of the mountain early in the season to melt the snow herself. And very powerful, very beautiful. And yeah, I really part of my musicianship that also I really um, want to discover more. And part of the reason why I'm excited for this concert as well is that I get to um, really kind of show new arrangements that I've made as well. So Ortejai Voronku is one of those, and also there's going to be another as well, another Crimean piece as well, Kalale Kazan, which is arrangement of a wedding song about a goose being cooked in a tinned pot that I've arranged as well. And yes, so there'll be a couple of original arrangements as well that I've done. But yes, so I am very excited to show Toronto a couple of instrumentals as well as covers and pieces that are older in my repertoire, some pieces that are newer in my repertoire, some pieces, of course, by Teryn Kytasty, as well as some, and then there's also a piece that I just performed at the Contemporary Music Festival by Lesia Dichko, Nochovni, that I'll be performing that I'm very excited to show you. It's beautiful. Really, it's only right hand and singing for most of it, and it's very haunting, but it's beautiful. And I had to email her and ask her if it was okay to perform that because it's really, really gorgeous. And the text is by Lesya Ukrainka. So I'm excited to I'm excited to share those with you.
Um, do you find it uh, in terms of repertoire, someone as being part of the sort of Kitasti family, um, and having kind of these figures in your family like Rehori Kitasti and obviously your uncle, do you find it important for yourself to include some of kind of your family repertoire in your general repertoire? Do you find that important for you? In just in general, I know you already kind of mentioned this in the very beginning, but has there been any particular pressure in your life to kind of continue that heritage, that Kitaste heritage? And how do you find yourself in this kind of, I guess Kitaste family history? Like, what do you, I guess, maybe want to add to it? And how you know what I mean, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and maybe you could also talk a little bit about well, specifically about your uncle. How has he, now that you're only in recent years have started to sort of perform as a soloist, and he obviously has performed for decades in North America and Ukraine. Has he given you any kind of, I guess, many valuable experience and advice about this career? And in general performing as a bandurist?
yeah, all good questions. So I think when I was younger, there was definitely that pressure. And, there was kind of this existential anxiety and dread when I was younger that which of course pulls a person away from something rather than towards it of, if you don't play bandura, then bandura will die, you know, because I just felt that bandura's dying, like there's no one's playing it, banduras aren't being built. It's so hard to find bandurists nowadays, and there was kind of that sense when I was growing up. I remember that. And so then when I was growing up, and then once actually I was like an older teenager and the banduras camp started growing, but then also I noticed kind of after Maidan happened that, and then people like Marina Krut started showing up, honestly, and Anastasia Wojciuk, and like even Yaroslav Jus and Kobzari, they started showing up on the scene, and I was like, oh, okay, there is kind of a renaissance of bandura happening, and it's becoming popular again. Um, I that kind of really quelled my anxiety about that. So I think my anxiety more came from that than being a catastrophe
Hmm.
more than anything. And so once that kind of quelled my anxiety, then I kind of was able to look at the catastrophe side of my family, being like, how can I how can I look at my family heritage and embrace it in a way that feels organic to me? And part of that also is that there's a whole side of the Kitasti family um, that also um, were opera singers. There were my Baba Lida Ketasta, who was married to my Dida Petro, who is still alive at 96 in Livonia, Michigan, turning 97 in May. Um, so Baba Lida, her mother, had four sisters, and those are all the chotas. They were all professional opera singers in the Sume Opera House before they escaped to Detroit. And they were all like they had like a professional quartet of like, and they were all amazing singers. Um, and so part of me is like, there is that part of me there as well too, like in the catastiness of the bandura playing as well. Um, and so I tried to really kind of balance both of those out. And then also in terms of my uncle, I've loved getting to kind of grow. I've loved, as a kid, people would ask me as a kid, what is it like being related to Julian Catasti? And I'm like, I don't know. He smells like garlic. What do you want me to say? Like, I don't know. I'm a kid. What am I supposed to say? But growing up and realizing that he is such a kind of he's an echelon of the Bandura community and of Bandura itself, that he really is somebody who not only has so many stories and so many resources, but he's just someone who loves to share, and so it's been so cool getting to know him as an adult and as a growing musician, and we've performed together quite a few times now too, and that's been so wonderful, just getting to learn these songs from him, learning about my family more. And so through that, I've kind of just grown into what feels right. And so I've learned these pieces like Lviivski Fragmente and Muzyczny Moment. And, the first piece Jules taught me at 14 was Nahadai Bandura Spivame, which I keep in my repertoire, kind of just on the regular because it fits my voice, it fits my bandura's playing, and it's such a beautiful piece by Hrhori. And yeah, so I keep those in my repertoire, and I kind of I perform them when I want to. And yeah, it just kind of naturally ebbs and flows whenever it fits in. But I think I don't feel pressured to play them. I think um I think it serves me, not serve me, but like I think you know, I've lately started with Ukrainian gigs. I've started putting Kitаста-Кузьма because it's like it is a very proud part of my um Ukrainian identity and my Ukrainian musical identity. With American audiences, it's like that's a bit much to put Kitаста-Kузьma because they don't know who that is. But like with Ukrainian audiences, it's definitely a part of um, who I am as an artist. So yeah.
Okay, well now, thank you for those. I mean, Julian definitely, I think, is sort of a pioneer in this kind
Hmm.
of solo bandura. He definitely inspired me to actually start this concert series because I do
Great.
feel solo bandura players or just maybe smaller ensembles don't tend to not get a lot of opportunities to really play and have concerts featured
Absolutely.
specifically about them, not sort
Yeah.
of just being a side performer at an event or something like that, where
Yeah.
the general focus is on them instead of something else, and they're just adding to the
Absolutely.
overall event. So just a final question, or I guess maybe more of a reflection I wanted to ask you. So obviously nowadays, um, I find performing tends to be especially emotional for us, especially for banduriste, because we're performing at so many um, events supporting Ukraine, either some kind of fundraiser or something like that. And just in recent times, it's been a bit disheartening for Ukrainians. And there's a sense of abandonment and lost hope. How has your experience been playing at recent shows in the last few months? Has it been sort of challenging for you? Does it get difficult emotionally? I know like there's certain songs I just listen from Marina Krutin, and others I tend to tear up. I couldn't imagine how it would be to actually perform that song sometimes, and do you think that we Ukrainian artists have a kind of, I guess, underlining like mission or we have to sort of keep the morale up through our music and keep the general um, our emotions kind of out of it because we have to show strength and we have to show kind of resilience through our performance.
Mhm. Yes. So that's a good question. So the war, I got a text that the war, that Russia was invading the night, um, of a dress rehearsal. Like I was getting text from my friend Christiana. She was like, "It's starting. Like they're bombing Kyiv, everything." I was in the lead role in at Bard of an opera, and the next day was my dress rehearsal date, and then the next day was like the performance in the show. Um, I don't know how I did it. Um, it was insane. And I threw myself into performing, and I think I really just kind of never stopped. Um, and so many people have told me have kind of asked me similar questions of like, do you give yourself a break? Have you, but I think it's in a way, I think, it's therapeutic. It's it's a way to channel that energy into something. And this is the way that we can, like, this is our way that we can channel people's pathos into them being able to support and give money to the causes that we're trying to fundraise for. So this is how we can support. Um, so for me, it's been a very cathartic thing to perform and to access these emotions, and also to at the Contemporary Music Festival this weekend. Like it's also been very cathartic to go to these concerts as well, and to process everything. And for us as Ukrainians, it's also important give ourselves the opportunity to also listen to our fellow musicians and just go support them in these concerts as well, and just and to tear up and to focus on how we are feeling and how we're processing everything, because it's constant. It's especially the past couple weeks have just been nonstop bombardment of information and developments and updates that have been incredibly disheartening. So I think for musicians, and I've I'm saying this, and I'm do what I say and not what I do, because easier said than done, of course, but I think the best thing to do is also to not only do these concerts, but also to observe people that you think are really um kind of that really keep going in a calm manner. So for me, Um, frankly, I look at other Ukrainians who are still performing to this day. So I look at Marina Krut, I look at Anastasia Wojciuk, and they really like I see them all. Whenever I do see them, they really do like whenever I do see them, they may not feel it, but like on the outside when they perform, they really do have this inner sense of calm. They have this inner pillar of like they know that this is what they have to do. They know this is where they're supposed to be. Um, and like it's I don't know if you've experienced this too, but like whenever I meet people from Ukraine who are living there now, I feel the same. I at least the majority of them, I sense this inner kind of core strength that they have of like they just keep going, and it's this inner calm, and it's this sense of we've been through this before, and we will keep going. This is not the end. um this we will get through this. And that also has really inspired me to keep going, is like observing these amazing women and these amazing performers that have come over and done these performances and fundraising performances, and I've used that as my own inspiration as well. Um, so I don't know if that really answers the question, but
It's perfect, yeah.
yeah.
Um, no, thank you. This has been a really great interview. The first time I've done anything like this, but I feel like I've really gotten to know you. I mean, I've known you for so many years, but
Yeah.
uh, I haven't spoken in a few years now. Um, so I just want to remind everyone that the show on the 21st will be a fundraiser to help raise money for the mental and physical rehabilitation of Ukrainian soldiers and veterans and civilians as part of the Canada-Ukraine Foundation's Even the Brave Struggle campaign. And I believe all donations are doubled up until April 3rd by another foundation. So actually, if anyone, any contributions, ticket sales and etc. will actually be double what there normally would be. And I just want to thank you, Tranya, wholeheartedly for participating in this event and being
Yeah,
the first feature bandurist at the Bandura on Bloor concert
I'm
in
so
Toronto.
excited. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear you sing, play, and just to see you again. And if there's something you want to say to our listeners and audience, but uh, floor is
Yeah.
yours now.
Yeah, absolutely. I am so excited to come to Toronto. It's also been so long since I've been there. I miss Toronto, and I'm so excited to see you all. Come out and come listen to some beautiful Bandura music. Come out, support Ukraine, and bring your friends, bring your family members. The more, the better. Come support Ukraine, support Bandura. І слава Україні!
Героям слава.